My partner forbade me from attending my own sister's wedding. So I went anyway, and found out why she really wanted me to stay home. My name's James, I'm 34, and I never thought I'd be standing at a kitchen table choosing between my family and the woman I loved. Rachel and I had been together 3 years and lived in Seattle. For the most part, we fit, same routines. Rachel was sharp and direct. She pushed me to be better. I admired that. Sometimes she pushed too hard and pressed on things I thought were private. I told myself that was part of loving someone who cared so much. My younger sister Chloe has always been a steady light in my life. After our dad died 2 years ago, we grew closer. When she asked me to walk her down the aisle this summer in Denver, it felt like the right thing. We shared planning by phone and text, traded dress photos, and laughed over small details. Standing with her felt like honoring Dad. Rachel had met Chloe a few times. They weren't friends, but they were civil. I never thought there was anything serious under the surface. I told Rachel the wedding date, and, months later, quietly booked my flight. It felt sensible to do it early. The night everything shifted was ordinary. We ate dinner and talked about small things. I was halfway through my salad when Rachel paused and looked at me with a new edge. "You booked it already?" she said. "Yeah, June," I answered. "You didn't ask me," she said, setting her fork down. The words landed flat. I tried to keep it light. "It's my sister's wedding." Her jaw tightened. "You know how I feel about her." That clicked something loose. Chloe had once told me, in a private moment, that she thought Rachel could be controlling. I hadn't thought much of it then. I hadn't imagined it would become a wedge between the people I loved most. I kept my voice steady. "Rachel, this isn't about sides. It's my family." Saying it felt like holding something fragile and asking it not to break. She looked at me for a long moment, and the softness I'd known in her face wasn't there. The conversation didn't flare with anger. It narrowed into a hard line. It was the kind of certainty that leaves no room for bargaining. I thought about Dad. I pictured him at the back of a small chapel in Denver, proud in a quiet, private way. I thought about Chloe walking down the aisle and how important that moment would be for both of us. It felt essential. I tried to make it practical. One flight, a short trip, I could come back the same night if needed. I suggested Rachel didn't have to go if she felt uncomfortable. Those offers didn't soften her. The issue had moved past logistics. It was personal, and that made everything heavier. We finished dinner in a strange silence. It felt like the air in the apartment had changed. I lay awake that night thinking over every detail, wondering when control had replaced partnership. The next morning, I tried again, gentler this time, clearer about my reasons, but I could sense the distance had already grown. The decision I thought would be obvious to anyone who knew me had become a test, and I wasn't sure where Rachel stood in it anymore. I knew I faced a choice that would reveal what I valued most. The worry sat heavy, but beneath it was a steadier thing, a certainty that when family called, I would answer. No matter what. Rachel stood near the sink that morning, coffee in hand, staring out the window like she was measuring her words before using them. When she finally spoke, her tone was level but firm. "Your family doesn't respect me, James," she said. "I'm not sitting through a weekend pretending we're okay. If you go, you're choosing them over me." It wasn't yelled. It didn't need to be. The quietness made it heavier. I looked at her, trying to find a trace of humor or hesitation, something that hinted she didn't mean it. There wasn't any. "You can't be serious," I said. "I am," she replied. "If you go, don't bother coming back." The words hit hard. I didn't shout back or argue. I just stood there, trying to catch up with what had just happened. For the rest of that day, the apartment felt smaller. Every sound, the hum of the fridge, the ticking clock, seemed louder. We didn't speak much. I sat on the couch thinking about Dad again, about Chloe's laugh, about how she'd always had my back when things got rough. She deserved to have me there. But then there was Rachel, the person I'd built my life with these past 3 years. The thought of losing her felt like stepping into cold water. Maybe, I told myself, this was just one of those fights that would fade after a night's sleep. That night, sleep never came. I turned over in bed again and again, her steady breathing beside me like a wall between us. Every few minutes, I looked at the ceiling and thought about the line she'd drawn. "If you go, we're done." In the morning, I tried one last time to reason with her. I kept my voice low. "I'll only be there a day. You don't have to come. I'll fly in, walk her down the aisle, and be back before you know it." She didn't turn from the mirror. "You're not hearing me, James. If you go, we're done." Her tone was different this time. Not angry, just final. Like the kind of finality you hear when someone has already made peace with their decision. I felt something close inside me. Maybe this wasn't about Chloe at all. Maybe it never was. This was about control, about whether I was willing to bend just to keep her comfortable. Over the next few days, I went through the motions, work, errands, small talk, but my thoughts were stuck in a loop. Chloe would call, voice full of excitement, asking about the suit, the flight, and my speech. I couldn't bring myself to tell her what was really happening, so I kept lying. Just sorting out travel stuff, I'd say, and she'd laugh, completely unaware that each call made me feel both closer to her and more trapped by Rachel's ultimatum. When I hung up, Rachel would glance my way but never say a word. It was the quietest war I'd ever lived through. No yelling, no slamming doors, just tension that filled every inch of the apartment. I started second-guessing everything. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe she really felt disrespected. Maybe Chloe had pushed too hard that one time, and Rachel never forgot it. But deep down, I knew none of that mattered. Love shouldn't demand proof in the form of cutting ties. A week before the wedding, I stood by the window watching the rain streak the glass and realized there was no version of this where I didn't lose something. Either I'd lose the woman I loved or the part of myself that believed in showing up for family. And between the two, only one choice felt right, the one I could live with in the long run. I wasn't sure yet how Rachel would react when I followed through, but I knew this much. When the day came, I'd be on that flight to Denver. 3 days before Chloe's wedding, I sat at the kitchen table, my suitcase half-packed. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of a plane passing overhead. I kept checking my phone, half expecting Rachel to walk in and start another argument. Instead, I just sat there, folding shirts that suddenly felt heavier than they should have. When the front door opened, I looked up. Rachel walked in earlier than usual, her expression unreadable. Her eyes went straight to the suitcase. "You're really doing this?" she asked, voice low but steady. I nodded. "Yeah, I have to." For a second, I thought she might yell or break down. She didn't. She just stood there, watching me like she didn't recognize the person in front of her anymore. Then she said, "Then we're done." She turned, walked to the bedroom, grabbed her coat, and left. The sound of the door closing wasn't loud, but it echoed through the apartment like it was final. I sat there for a long time, staring at the suitcase. I didn't cry, didn't shout. I just felt still. My phone buzzed. Chloe again, asking if I was excited for the weekend. I stared at her message for a moment before typing. I wouldn't miss it for the world. When I hit send, something inside me settled. I didn't know what would happen when I came back, but I knew I couldn't let Rachel's anger rewrite what mattered most. The flight to Denver was short, but my thoughts made it feel longer. The moment the plane touched down, I felt lighter, like I'd finally exhaled after weeks of holding my breath. Chloe met me at the airport. She ran toward me, laughing, tears in her eyes. "You actually came." I hugged her tight. "Of course I did. You really thought I'd miss this." She pulled back, smiling, but there was something in her eyes, a quiet understanding that things weren't easy on my end. She didn't press. She never had to. The weekend felt like stepping into sunlight after being indoors too long. Family everywhere, music, laughter, people hugging and crying. Chloe looked radiant, and when I walked her down the aisle, I thought of Dad. I felt his presence there, like he was proud. During my speech, I said, "Family isn't about who's easy to love. It's about who shows up when it counts." People clapped, but I could see a few guests watching me closely, maybe sensing that there was a story behind those words. That night, after the reception, Chloe and I sat outside under the lights strung across the garden. She rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for coming, James. It means more than you know." I smiled and said, "It means more than you know, too." I didn't tell her about Rachel's ultimatum. Not yet. It would only cast a shadow over a perfect night. The next morning, I watched Chloe and her husband drive off, waving goodbye as confetti still clung to their hair. It was one of those moments you want to freeze, simple. As I boarded my flight back to Seattle, I thought about everything I'd left behind, the conversations, the tension. I didn't know if Rachel would even be there when I returned. Maybe she'd cool off, maybe she wouldn't. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel afraid of that answer. Whatever waited for me back home, I'd done what I knew was right. And that mattered more than anything. When my plane landed in Seattle, it was just after sunset. The sky was dim, painted with that deep orange hue that usually feels comforting. But as I rode back to the apartment, I felt something else entirely, a quiet heaviness. I unlocked the door, expecting at least some trace of Rachel, her shoes by the mat, her jacket on the hook, her scent in the air. Instead, what hit me first was emptiness. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. I set my bag down and immediately noticed the small things. Her framed photos gone, drawers half open, closet door wide and hollow. She'd moved out. Even the coffee maker, the one I'd bought, was missing from the counter. All that remained was a single folded note, left neatly by the sink. "You made your choice. Don't call me." No explanation. No anger. Just those words. I stood there for a long time. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the room. I expected to feel heartbreak or panic, but what came instead was something I didn't expect at all. relief. The apartment, stripped of her presence, felt open for the first time in months. I could breathe. That night, I sat on the couch staring at the blank wall where her artwork used to hang. The silence was strange, but it wasn't painful. It was calm. Still, reality began to settle in. We'd shared rent, bills, furniture, a life. I needed to sort everything out. The next morning, I texted her, not to fight, just to talk like adults. No reply. I called twice. Straight to voicemail. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. It was Caleb, my oldest friend. Dude, he said, I think you should see this. He sent me a screenshot. Rachel's Instagram story, a photo of her with another guy, both smiling at some downtown bar. The caption read, "Sometimes you don't realize what you deserve until you walk away." The timestamp said it all. The post was from the day after I left for the wedding. I stared at it for a long time. My chest didn't tighten. My hands didn't shake. I just felt clarity. This wasn't about Chloe's wedding. It was never about family loyalty. Rachel had already moved on. She just needed a way to make herself the victim, and me, the villain. Later that evening, I told Chloe. She listened quietly before sighing. "I always thought she had a problem with not being in control," she said. "She didn't like that you had a life outside her." She was right. Every argument we'd ever had, about friends, time apart, plans, it all pointed to one thing. Rachel didn't want a partnership. She wanted control disguised as commitment. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt done. The next week, I started moving my stuff to Caleb's spare room temporarily. Every time I looked at my phone, part of me still expected a message from Rachel, something angry, emotional, or even regretful. But nothing came. Days passed. The silence continued. And strangely, that silence started to feel good, peaceful. I didn't realize how much noise I'd been living with until it was gone. At night, I'd sit by the window with a cup of coffee, instant this time, and look out at the city lights. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew this. I'd made the right choice. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my own life back. About a month later, just when life was starting to feel steady again, my phone lit up late one night. The time read 11:47 p.m. The number was unknown, but I knew who it was before I even opened it. It was Rachel. Her message was long, more than a paragraph, written like someone trying to explain a decision they no longer stood by. "I shouldn't have made you choose. I thought you'd pick me. I didn't think you'd actually go. I just wanted to feel like you cared more about us than them. But now I see what I did was selfish. I miss you, James." I thought about everything that had happened. The arguments, the ultimatums, the quiet manipulation that I'd mistaken for love. It all came rushing back, but this time, it didn't hurt. It just made sense. I typed my reply slowly, choosing every word with care. I cared, but love isn't supposed to come with ultimatums. Then I hit send, put the phone down, and blocked the number. No dramatic closure. No angry messages. Just done. For a while, that was the end of it. Weeks passed, and I focused on small things, getting a new place, working out, calling Chloe every other day just to hear her laugh. My world was quiet, but real. Then one evening, Caleb called again. "Hey man, you should probably know this." He sent another screenshot, this time from social media. Rachel again. Same guy from her earlier post. Different caption now. "Some things aren't meant to last." A week later, I heard she'd been dumped. The guy ghosted her. Part of me expected to feel vindicated. I didn't. Mostly, I just felt sorry. Not for her, but for how far she'd gone to prove something that wasn't real. A few days later, I got an email from her. It was long, rambling, filled with apologies and half-explanations. The same cycle again, guilt. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to fix. It took me some time to really understand what had happened between us. Rachel hadn't just tried to keep me from going to a wedding. She tried to test me, to see if I'd give up everything that wasn't centered around her. When I didn't, she punished me for it. That realization hurt quietly. It made me reflect on all the small compromises I'd made to keep things peaceful. The plans canceled, the opinions swallowed, the times I said, "You're right," just to avoid another long talk. Now, I don't do that anymore. Therapy helped. So did time. So did Chloe, who told me recently, "You look lighter, like you finally let something go." And she was right. I told her, because I stopped mistaking control for love. Last week, I hung a framed photo in my living room. Chloe's wedding picture, the one where I'm walking her down the aisle. Every time I look at it, I remember what that moment meant. It wasn't just a family photo. It was a reminder that loyalty and love shouldn't come with conditions. Sometimes I catch myself standing in front of it, thinking about what I said in my speech that day. Real love doesn't cage you. It walks beside you. It took losing Rachel to finally understand that truth. And honestly, if I had to make the same choice again, I'd still choose my sister. I'd still choose peace. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.